Hi everybody. I'm hopping on really quickly this morning because we're going to the beach. Here in France we are confined, but we're allowed to go and walk around the beach and exercise and do things like that. And since all the beach restaurants and things are closed, I'm going to make a sandwich that we usually like to get at the beach, because the beaches over here near Cannes and Antibes and this kind of area, in summertime they've got these food trucks that have been there for like decades and decades, where they will sell like French fries, sandwiches and stuff. And one of the typical sandwiches of the region is called pain bagnat. Okay, now pain bagnat is, picture Nisswa salad in a sandwich. That's what that is. Now, I should specify that Nisswa salad, if you know it as something with potatoes and green beans, that's a myth. The real Nisswa salad is actually with green onions, it has radish, it has tomatoes, it has anchovies, hard-boiled eggs, sometimes it has tuna, and sometimes it might have some raw kind of artichokes, like the baby artichokes, but it has no potato and it has no green beans. The only reason I think maybe people have put green beans is because originally you're supposed to put these little green like beans. I forget how, like they look like edamame, but they're not edamame. They're just I forget the name of them in English, but in French you call them fivets, and they're just fresh little green beans that look like edamame, but they're not at all like the long green beans. They're not string beans. So anyways, sorry, I digress. So I'm gonna make pain bagnat with what I've got here, and let me just show it to you. I think you should like it. I think it's something that most, I would say most non-French people wouldn't really be familiar with, or when I have seen versions of it outside of France, it's been like very transformed versions of it. So let me give you the real version. Now, the reason they call it pain bagnat is because bagnat means to like bathe in like old Southern French. And why it's bathing is because it's bathing in oil, in olive oil. All right, so I'm going to do the first big no-no is that I'm going to use a wide baguette for this. What you should use is a pain bagnat bread, because there's a bread that's specifically like designed for this, that's round, and it's not quite a flat bread, but it's not overly crusty, so you can bite into it and not like pull everything out at the same time, you know what I mean? All the fillings out. Having said that, my baker gave me like a wide baguette, but the pain bagnat bread is hard to find, so either you make it or you find something, some kind of crusty roll that kind of looks like it, but you don't want any processed bread that's like too soft, because then it's going to completely disintegrate as you eat it. So I have this baguette. It's fresh from today. It's not too hard. You don't want it to be too hard, so I asked for a baguette that hasn't been too cooked. Okay. So I will take about, how big do you want it, Noah? Like this? Like this? Bigger? Half? Okay. I'll take half. All right. You don't want it to be too small anyways, right? Like, cause you've got a lot of stuff to fit in here. So I will cut it in half. There. Okay. So the ingredients you're going to need is, first of all, olive oil. Now, when, like, some people just put olive oil, salt and pepper, okay? What I do, and what the food truck guy, or the food truck couple, I should say, do, is that they put like a vinaigrette. So there's a little bit of vinegar, a little bit of red wine vinegar in the olive oil, but just a little bit, okay? You don't need to put it. The original recipe does not have a vinaigrette, okay? It's just olive oil. So you put the olive oil. Now I'm gonna do this and you know, as I go, but first let me explain what I'm going to do after the olive oil. Is I'm going to put some fresh basil, okay? I've got fresh basil and I've got a bit of fresh like a green onion, just a little bit, because we don't put too much, but some people just put more. We don't like too much raw onion, but you know, usually they put a bit more. We've got celery over here. Celery is like super key ingredient here. I've got red bell pepper. The original recipe calls for green bell pepper, and here they've got these, in summer they've got these green bell peppers that are kind of small and thin, and they're really good in salad, so they use that. I don't have any, so I'm just going to use red bell pepper and some sliced up radish. Okay, so I don't know if you see all of this. Sliced up radish, red bell pepper, the celery, the herbs and the chives, or like green onions, and some beautiful tomatoes. So I have a few slices of tomatoes. I've also got a hard-boiled egg that I've sliced up, and I've got some anchovies and tuna, and some little olives, all right? And all of that is gonna go into the sandwich, all right? So what I suggest that you do is that you prepare everything like I did first, and then you put it together. Otherwise, it's gonna be like a disaster, right? Usually what you do, if you're preparing a lot at the same time, you kind of line them up and just, you know, prep them all at the same time, like in a factory, you know? So here we go. I'm gonna put, and so be generous with this, huh? Like don't, you know, it's supposed to be like oily and greasy when you eat it. So none of this, I'm on a diet and I don't want it to be too fatty, blah, 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 okay? If that's your thing, then don't have this, okay? Because this is not for that. This is meant to be really kind of, you know, soaked in the vinaigrette. Now, I'm going to start with the herbs. I'll put the herbs in here. I don't know if you can see that properly. There you go. A little bit better. I'm going to put the herbs first. Everybody's got their version, right? Like, I'm a total amateur when it comes to this. Like, Southern French people are going to look at this and go, whatever, you Canadian girl. But this is pretty close to the real thing. Then I'm going to put the celery. You basically put all your veg, right? You put all your veg. It's like such a pretty sandwich. And the radish. Make sure to cut everything up really finely. The guys at the stall, what they do is they really cut everything up super finely. They like food prep, you know, before they open. And it's so that it doesn't fall apart when you eat it. Okay, so this is just so pretty. I need to show you what it looks like. Do you see that? Isn't that like gorgeous? So back to me. Now, what we're gonna do is we're going to put tuna. I've got my tuna here. Some people put, like most people put anchovies in it. I love it with anchovies. My son's not really into anchovies, so I'm not gonna put any here. So I've got a can in here. So you put about 1/3 of a can in this size sandwich. That should do. Maybe a bit more, maybe a little bit more. Okay, and then I put the tomatoes. I mean, I put it in this order. You do what you like, but it's good to have the hard vegetables at the bottom, so they, you know, they're with the vinaigrette, and then the tuna on top, and then you've got the egg. So don't worry if you're like nervous about overcooking the eggs. They can totally be overcooked here in this recipe, and it's totally fine, and we don't care, and we're not going to be like purists about the whole egg cooking thing. So there you have it. Now, normally you'd also have those little green edamame type beans in here. You could also have, like I said, the little baby, they're like little purple artichokes that you call Poivrad Artichokes. And usually they're here in springtime and summertime, and they are chopped really finely and they're raw, and you put a bit in there. So that's nice. I mean, it's a nice to have, right? But most bakeries who sell the sandwich, won't put it. Like this, it's more of a traditional, you have the time and you know, you get the artichokes just for this type of thing. Otherwise, you know, most of the time you don't have that. And then you're gonna put some, a bit of salt. Okay, I mean, if you've got the anchovies, you don't need to. A bit of pepper. Oh, and I'm forgetting an ingredient. I'm so nervous to forget anything. Okay, so in southern France, in the Nice region, because this is a very kind of Niçois, they have these little tiny olives that they call Nisswa Olives. And now these, look at these, these are kind of even a big version of these Nisswa olives. Oh, and our friends grow them not very far from us, and they put them in salt and water and everything, and they made these. But I'm not going to put these in here because they've got pits, and I haven't had time to take out the pits. So I'm getting my local black olives from next door that are soaking in oil, and I'm just going to cut them up, you know, and put a few there. If you don't have that, and if you've got Kalamata is fine. And these are really, like, really delicious. So there you have it. Now I'm gonna close this baby, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna close it, and I'm going to wrap it. Now I'm hiding. You see how like pretty this is? Like this totally is like, and then what you need to do is you let it sit for a bit. And I'm gonna wrap it, let it sit for a bit before you eat it. So that'll give us time to get to the beach. So that is pain bagnat. I wanted to show you another recipe today. Since we're in the southern French tradition, I wanted to talk about how French people, it's part of the culture when you go to people's houses, or even when you're at home and you're just having like a dinner on a Friday night or whatever. Oftentimes you'll have what they call l'apéritif, or apéro, which it's loosely called, and that's basically, you know, snack and cocktail hour. Now it doesn't need to involve alcohol, but in summer it often will. If you've got guests, it'll be like rosé or pastis, like an anise-based liqueur. Liquor, I should say, not liqueur. And you know, there are gonna be drinks and there's gonna be nibbles. And when you have people over, or when people come over, you'll have things like tapenade, like an black olive spread or a green olive spread. I have those recipes on my website in case you're wondering about them. They're little dips. You could have some hummus. Now that's pretty fashionable. Guacamole is fashionable now. You're gonna have little quiche, little pissaladière. It's like a traditional onion tart that you've got in the south of France. That's also on my website if you want to check out the recipe. And one thing that I found in France, and I was not familiar with this at all before living here, like 15 whatever more years ago, was that they love savory cakes, and they call them cake, and it basically looks like a pound cake, but it's savory and it's lighter than a pound cake. They've got sweet cakes, but when you say, oh, I'm going to bring a cake, it's usually a savory one, so it's salty. And it's very, very popular in summer when you're having a get-together and you're having apéro or apéritif, to have a cake salé, which is like savory cake. All right, so let me show you the basic recipe. So it really is a thing here. Like, they've written books about it. You know, like there's many books about it. So the basic recipe for it is, I've put a cup, like 150 grams of flour. So that's like about 1 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour or gluten-free flour. They both work. You've also got some baking powder in there. I put a good teaspoon of it. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt, okay? And then I'm going to mix in 3 eggs. All right, I'm just gonna put the eggs directly into the flour. I know that looks a bit weird for those of you who make cakes and stuff and who bake. Usually, you know, you don't do it this way, but this is how we do this recipe. So I'm gonna mix this. I don't know if you can see, but it doesn't really matter because it's just flour, salt, baking powder that have been pre-mixed, and then 3 eggs. So you mix this, it's gonna be kind of a thick, you know, gloopy mess, but that's okay. And then what we do is that we add 100 milliliters of, I put olive oil. So you could use canola or, you know, these like other oils that are lighter and that have less flavor. But I don't like using them because they're not very good for you. I mean, a lot of things aren't good for you, but these are really not very good for you. So if, like, there's one thing I try to avoid, it's that. And then you put milk. So milk, I'll put a little bit more than, like you'd put half a cup of milk. So you put a little bit less than half a cup of olive oil, and you'll put half a cup of milk. It has to be lukewarm. You can also like heat it up slightly. That's works. That's good. Now, normally you should add cheese. So they use grated cheese called Emmental. It's like a French Emmental cheese. It's or you could use Gruyere. But to be honest, if you don't have anything else, just use like a light cheddar. You know what I mean? So like here, Emmental is something you find like for really cheap everywhere in the supermarkets, and there's like big bags of them. If you live somewhere else, that might not be the case, and I wouldn't go off and like necessarily spend a bundle to just go get Emmental. You can just put grated cheese, and that's fine. And you put quite a bit. You would put probably like 100 grams of cheese, grated. I'm not gonna put it. I'll tell you why, because I'm putting other ingredients. So normally you would put the cheese, and then you put olives, and you put like green olives that are chopped up or black olives that are chopped up. You can put chopped up ham, and you put in the oven, 175 degrees, 45 minutes, boom, done. Now, I'm not gonna do the ham olive one, because the ham olive one is a very, very, very typical recipe. And it's very popular, but I wanted to try something different because it's spring and I wanted green. So I will put some grated courgettes. So this was a really big courgette, so I'm not going to put the whole thing. I would say like a medium courgette that's not been peeled, only the tips are cut off, and you would grate it. All right, so you grate it, don't slice. Great. If you didn't have this, but if you had, let's say, leftover vegetables, like leftover roasted vegetables, or leftover ratatouille, or roasted peppers, or, you know, like if you had a cup of that happening somewhere in your fridge or hanging out in your fridge, you could substitute that for the courgettes. Okay, so let me mix it all up. Now, what I will add to that is I will add some goat's cheese. This is about, I would say this is like 200 grams of goat cheese. It's about a cup or 2/3 cup. And so I'm gonna mix that. And you see this batter is looking like this. It looks like a thick like cake batter, I guess. I will put some pepper. I'm definitely gonna have to put some salt, and there you go. Now the goat cheese I took is like a crumbled fresh goat cheese. It's not super salty, but you could use feta. You could use so many different cheeses. Like really, I mean, you go crazy. But this is nice and light. The chèvre, like goat cheese, is nice and light. So I'm gonna take this and put it in a loaf pan that's been lined with baking paper, with parchment paper. So I'm a big fan of parchment paper. Like you're gonna see, I was writing my ebook all the past few weeks, and I keep thinking like, oh my God, I'm always writing line a pan with parchment paper, line a pan with parchment paper. And I feel like anybody who buys that book needs to get parchment paper. because I use it all the time. Instead of greasing my pan, I prefer parchment paper. First of all, it doesn't make a mess on the baking sheet or the pan or whatever. And second, it doesn't stick, right? Because sometimes you'll put oil and it will still stick. And I don't like the whole cake sticking at the bottom thing. Drives me insane. So that's done. If you wanted to add something more to this, could you see? If you want to add something more, you could totally put a few pine nuts. You could put courgette. You could put some of those olives. You could put, I put chervil. You could put mint, courgette, and goat cheese go really well together. But I wouldn't put a ton of it, and I would mince it really finely. Yeah, the possibility is endless. You can put basil, I mean, probably like whatever. So that's it for me today. I'm going to put this in the oven, like I said, 175, 200 degrees Celsius for about 45 minutes. I'm going to take a picture of it when it's done so that you see what it looks like. It will be a dense-ish kind of cake. And when it cools, you slice it. You can slice it in slice each slice in half as well when you serve it on a platter, and it's really, really nice. And I know today was very carb heavy because of the sandwich and the savory cake, but it is so, these are just two quintessential elements of Southern French spring and summer food. And I had to share them with you. So I look forward to being here with you again. I will go back. Well, now we're going to the beach, and I will upload this later. I'll put a picture. I'll post a picture in my stories. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you want to go see the pissaladière or the tapenade recipes I was talking about before, go on WELLMAMMA.com on my website and check it out. You can just search it up. It's there. What else? The Spring Summer Feel Good ebook is coming. All right. It's done. Almost finished editing. And all you Europeans who've been telling me everything's in cups and things, and I want grams, I'm putting the grams in too. All right. So you won't have to deal with the cup system if you don't want to. And what else? I think that's it. It's gonna be good. And there's like a meal plan and a menu plan in that book. I really think you guys are gonna like it. There's a lot of fresh spring and summery recipes. I hope you enjoy them. I will let you know when it goes live. Follow me on Instagram at wellmama, and keep tuning in. If you like these recipes, go ahead and share the video, like it, subscribe, I don't know, do all of that stuff. I bid you farewell. Have a wonderful weekend. See you soon, guys.